Hello, I'm Scotland. If you're new here, thanks so much for clicking on today's video, and if you're not new, welcome back. As you can tell, I'm going to do a reading journal flip through, which I am so excited to do. I know this is like kind of late because most people do it like towards the end of the year or like in the first couple of weeks of January, but there's a lot of stuff that we need to catch up on, so I'm just going to do this quick little video of flipping through my reading journal, which I'm actually really proud of because I'm pretty sure it's probably like one of the first little craft things that I've ever actually finished from start to finish. Like I started this journal back in 2023 and I did a little flip through of that at the beginning of last year, so if you haven't seen it, I'll put it in like the cards on whatever these corners, but watch that after this video. Like I said in my last flip through, this has really just been a journey of learning to not take things so seriously and not be such a perfectionist whenever I'm just trying to create. Very proud of it, and there's like a lot of fun spreads in here that I'm actually really excited to show. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so like I said, this is the same journal from last year, so we're just gonna get straight into the journal spreads. But opening it up, this is what the beginning parts of my journal looks like. I had a lot of leftover images from 2023, so instead of doing like a full title page, I just went ahead and put all of my extra images here. So I'm gonna go over into 2024 where we see our first mistake that I didn't even notice was a mistake until literally like maybe towards the end of December. I didn't realize that I had put 2024. So like this is what I mean by just not taking the journal too seriously and just having a good time and like doing whatever I want. But at the beginning of the year, I was kind of going towards a theme of doing like a coquette. Like I was really into the bows and whatnot, like a coquette gothic kind of thing, because of course Saltburn, and I was like obsessed with like this like little gothic font, which honestly took me way too long, like much longer than I needed to put my time into. But flipping the page, I have my star review breakdown of how I was ranking my like anything that I watched, anything that I read, like this is what these stars mean throughout the whole year. And then I have my goals on this page, which I really didn't do well at like at all. I didn't finish my physical TBR. I quite actually made it much longer. And then I didn't read 10 literary fiction books because last year, I think I've talked about it plenty of times in my previous videos, but I really spent 2024 getting back into my film stuff and getting back into like liking movies and whatever. So I really spent a lot of my time last year watching movies and not really reading as much as I wanted to, because I'm gonna give you a spoiler alert, I did not hit my Goodreads goal last year, and I even lowered it at some point like halfway through the year and I still didn't reach it. I'm not mad at myself about that at all. It's just like where life took me. I also didn't annotate 3 scripts either, so yes. I did watch 3 new films a month. I ended up finishing last year watching 130 movies, which I think out of 130 of those movies, I think maybe only 10 of them were like rewatches, so at least 120 of them were new movies that I hadn't seen before, which I think is a really good thing, because for a while there before, I'm pretty sure the year before, I had only watched like 11 movies, or maybe I had only logged 11 movies on my Letterboxd. But I had a really bad habit of, instead of watching something new, I would just turn on Harry Potter and I would watch it over and over and over again. But I was really intentional last year about introducing myself to new media and like watching new films and whatnot, so I'm actually quite proud of that goal. I did do that really well. And then I also did have a goal of write 1 full film review a month. Now I didn't do this monthly, so I did end up writing 12 film reviews, but I didn't do them monthly, so kind of like I got the goal, but like not in its intended way, but I'm gonna take that as a win. And then I had watched 12 foreign films, which I did very poorly at. I think I probably only watched maybe 3 or 4 foreign films last year, and it's just one of those things where it's like I love watching foreign films. I've just conditioned my brain so horribly to think that when I'm watching a movie I should be multitasking, which you really just can't do with a foreign film because I have to read the subtitles. So I didn't do well at this job and I hope to do better at it this year. Going into my book log, these are all the books I read last year. I I had a goal of reading, I'm pretty sure 45 books, because the year before I read 45 books. So I read 28 books. I read 28 books, and I'm keeping it really honest here and like showing you, like throughout this you'll see that there are blank spaces where I just didn't finish filling things in, and I think we need to become more casual on the internet and not perfect ourselves so much for presentation and just be very honest about the things we're doing. So while I did keep up with my journal kind of sufficiently, there are a lot of parts of this that are empty, and I'm just kind of okay with it being that way. Not horrible, but like not great either. And I think another thing that I've also been struggling with my reading is that I did start reading again like back in 2021 2020 because I wanted it to help me with my writing. And then I think really last year I like seeing like the visual breakdown of the books that I was reading, I was realizing that like none of this would really ever help with my writing, if I'm being honest. Like I have no goal of writing a fantasy novel or like writing a fantasy film or anything. Like it's just not my goal. But I was primarily reading fantasy books and then like random smut books. Of course, like this was a fun time, and like maybe out of all of these books that I've read on this page, the one that would inform my writing the most is Bonjour Tristis, which I really loved that book. But like just like the quality of books that I was reading I loved them, I had a really good time reading them, but like I've kind of veered off from like the entire purpose of my reading, and I think that's also what kind of deterred me from reading. But this page, flipping it over, we have my film log, which I did very well at, so much so that I had to do like a whole, like, you can't really tell, but I had to do like a whole little thing for how many movies I had watched. And then at some point I messed up and accidentally wrote movies twice onto this page, so once again gave up on this because I had just seen too many movies at that point and I didn't want to keep writing it down. Also because I have a letterbox. The reason why these pages kind of took the back burner is because I already digitally log all of the things that I have, and it was becoming kind of time consuming and a lot of work to keep up with the logs physically, which I just didn't really care to do anymore. But yeah, so I have all of these films, which I really love seeing this, but you can see here that I had to start printing them smaller because I realized I was running out of room for the amount of movies I had, because I'm pretty sure, yeah, Challengers, like this right here is like already covering, I think like up to April, because I think Challengers came out in April. So I was running out of room quite quickly, and then I stopped. So that's transparency right there. And then I have, of course, my little dot grid of the movies I watch. And then this is my list of things that I wanted to watch and read in the year. So on my books to read, I didn't do great once again, but it was also like kind of really ambitious of me because, as you can tell, I had like the last book for, well, at the time, the last book for the Crescent City series, and then I had the last book for the Throne of Glass series, and then I had this gigantic book of A Little Life, which I really have no desire to read anymore because it's just too long, and I've heard it's horribly sad, and I'm not really there in life where I want to read something so sad anymore. So I got quite close to finishing the series last year, but after that tandem read, I just needed a break from the series. So I do hope to finish Kingdom of Ash quite soon while the story is still fresh in my brain, but like it's definitely not top of mind right now to finish or pick it up right now. And then as you see on my films to watch, I did pretty well with all the movies that I wanted to watch, and of course the 2 movies that I didn't watch out of these 8 are 2 foreign films, which I want to watch so bad. I've heard nothing but great things about it, and I've seen scenes of this in my film class. I just haven't sat down long enough and committed my eyeballs to the screen to watch a foreign film with the subtitles. But if you can't tell, this is the movie In the Mood for Love by Wong Kar-wai, and then I have Chungking Express. And then, of course, I forgot to add my 2 favorites of the year, but this is just my like little count or like, I don't know, chart of how to figure out like what my favorite books and my favorite movie were for the year. And I really loved doing this because sometimes, first of all, I always forget like what I've watched or what I've read throughout the year, but I think this is a really great way for me to know like what my favorite parts of the year were, reading wise or film wise. So, but my favorite book of the year, I'm pretty sure I gave it to The Paradise Problem. My top 3 were The Paradise Problem, Alone with You in the Ether, and Daisy Haight. I had such a good time reading The Paradise Problem that it put me in a book slump for like at least a month because I just did not want to read anything that wasn't on the same level as this. I had so much fun reading The Paradise Problem, so that one is definitely my favorite book from last year. And then on this side, my favorite films, my top 3 were Dune Part 2, The Color Purple, the recent one that they made with the musical, and then this film called Femme. This is a phenomenal movie. I was so shocked by how much I loved it. And if you are a fan of like Uncut Gems or Good Time by the Safdie brothers, I definitely recommend watching Femme. It's kind of like along the same lines, but it's way more inclusive because it's a story more rooted in queerness. But this is a very good film. Unfortunately, Dune Part 2 was my favorite movie last year. I just feel like I was so transformed from Dune Part 2, and we'll talk about it more later, but I loved Dune. I loved it so much. So those are my 2 favorites that I just didn't print the pictures out for. And then we have my series tracker, which honestly had very little movement. Like, I haven't filled out like my Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms, but I really didn't continue watching any of these movies. I mean, any of these TV series last year. And then I also had the goal of reading Harry Potter. I like added that like halfway through the year last year. This is this page. Very unexciting, to be honest, but once again, I really liked how I did the title, and I think like the amount of effort I put into this title is what's made me like not want to do anything else with this journal. It took me a very long time to do those, but those were really fun. And then I had my anticipated releases for each month for films. I don't really keep up with like releases for books because I read them at my own speed, but I definitely had a lot of films that I wanted to watch last year, and I did see quite a few of them. I loved doing this. This was a really good way for me to keep up with like what was coming out, so I really liked that. And then now we're finally getting into my monthly spreads, which you will see something quite soon, but don't worry, you guys. I had a lot of fun doing this title page. It was really cute for me, and I think it's something I'll put into my junk journal. Yeah, immediately immediately didn't do well at this. Same thing that I did for my journal last year. I had my stats page of like the total books read, my TBR, a wish list, and like a little quote and like a little calendar, which I don't really know why I had a calendar there. Like, it was just dead space, so I put a calendar there. But the first book that I wanted to do like a little spread for was Assassin's Blade, which was kind of premature for me because I actually didn't really like Assassin's Blade. It's kind of a hit or miss for me. Like, of course, more as I gotten further into the series, I have a bigger appreciation for the book, but at the time I really didn't like it, and I'm like so beyond the point of wanting to do things that I don't want to do anymore, so I just haven't done it. I didn't finish that one. And then I read Iron Flame last year, and I feel like I lost brain cells reading this book. Like, I think I've said it so many times, but this book was so long and it was so big, and I read it in physical format, and the font size on the physical hardcover book is tiny. And then also the pages are huge. So like, I didn't love this. I didn't hate it. A lot happened in this book. I think Violet towards maybe like the 3/4 of the book really got on my nerves, so much so that I was very much so on Xaden's side. Yeah, I didn't love this book. I do like this, like the spread, and I did have a good time reading it, so I will be reading Onyx Storm at some point this year, but I didn't love this book. And then this was around the time when I was like, I want to do my film reviews. Yeah, so I started with Bones and All, put a lot of effort into the back of this page. didn't finish writing the review. And I realized it's because I multitasked while watching this movie. And if you know me, you know I love Luca Guadagnino. I love him. Call Me By Your Name is my favorite movie. For some reason, Bones and All just didn't sit with me well, and I think it's because I was multitasking while I was watching the movie, and I know I need to go back and rewatch it with my full brain. And like throughout the year last year, I constantly thought about it, so I know that I enjoyed the movie. I just definitely need to go back and watch it. So this is my Bones and All page. Not done. So then we have a new setup for February where I did like this little calendar thing that I saw on TikTok, whose TikTok I really can't remember whose TikTok it is, but I did take this inspiration from someone else. But if I can find her, I'll put her somewhere on the screen. But I really loved how she does her journal, so I did it kind of the same, and I kind of liked how I did it this way because I was keeping up with like my YouTube videos and then also like how long it was taking me to read a book and whatever. So I actually really like this one. And if you know anything, this is the Call Me If You Get Lost album cover for Tyler the Creator. I was really into Tyler the Creator at the time, so this is the theme of the spread. You guys, please bear with me. I promise things get better. So I had changed my stats page, did my TBR and my to be watched. Didn't do well on either one of them. I was reading Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. Loved it so much on the audiobook that I knew that I needed to hurry up and get the physical copy so I could finish the book. Got the physical copy, never finished the book. So like this is still here. Once again, prematurely did a little scrapbook page for it, and I haven't finished it. But I do intend on finishing this book. I loved it. I just like, it took a lot of brain power to listen and to read, and I just never sat back down to reconnect with it again. So I do anticipate finishing this book, mainly because it's on my physical TBR. It's just like didn't get finished last year. Then I did my little, I think we've all, won't say we all, but more as I got into film, I was getting a lot of Letterboxd videos, and it was always of their social media team asking celebrities what their top 4 were, like their top 4 favorite movies on their Letterboxd was. So this is kind of like my take on that, but in my journal. So I did like my top 4, and I did full reviews for each of them. Broken Hearts Gallery is probably one of my most favorite casual watch movies. If I ever feel like I'm having a hard day or just want to really laugh or like feel like I still have a chance at love, I watch this movie. At the time, like Romeo and Juliet has probably been my longest lasting movie that I love so much, just because of every aspect of this movie is so well crafted and I just love it so much. So I did like a Romeo and Juliet page here. And then Waves. I love this movie so much. I just cannot watch it again. Like I went through a phase where I would like watch like at least once a week, I think back in 2020. And then later last year, I tried to watch it again casually, just like, oh, this is my favorite movie, let me watch it again. Couldn't get through it because I was sobbing so hard. So I do intend on still finishing this film review at some point, like a full breakdown of why I love this movie. I just cannot, I don't have it in me right now. I don't have it in me right now to do that, but I really love this one. And the quote here just says, all we have is now, which if you've seen this movie, you understand. But yeah, I love this movie so much, and I highly recommend watching it if you haven't seen it. And then, like I said earlier, of course, my favorite movie, Call Me By Your Name. My notes are here for what I want to write down in my review, which we'll also talk about probably in a later video, but this is another page that I did for my top 4 films of, like my top 4 like Letterboxd films. Then we go into March, where I was taking more of a liberty of like trying to try new creative things. Like I cannot draw, you guys. I don't think you're quite grasping that, but like this was quite impressive to me. So that is what I did there. This is where things start to change. So I have my stats page, of course, where I did a little bit better on the movies that I wanted to watch. Once again, just really gave up on the reading stuff by this point. But this is where we get into the spreads that I actually am really proud of and really love. So I read Daisy Hates, and I have a vlog on that one too, so I'll put it on the cards. I don't know, I think they probably pop up in this corner, but you can watch my vlog of Daisy Hates. I had so much fun reading this book, and I love this spread so much. I love how it looks really scrapbooky. And then we have my Dune spread, my Dune part 2. This is like primarily like the review is for the entire Dune series, but really these images are from part 2. I love this movie so much. I think I wrote in here that this is just a really great and gorgeous commentary on like politics, religions, and love, and how like they all come together in a way that I would have never imagined. And then I also read Heir of Fire, which 100% changed the entire Throne of Glass series for me. I had read Throne of Glass through Assassin's Blade first. So what is that? Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Assassin's Blade before I read Heir of Fire, and I was not having a good time reading the series. Like, I enjoyed Crown of Midnight, didn't love it though, but Heir of Fire really changed the entire series for me. We really get to see more of the characters and more people come to life in this one. So also, like, this isn't a spoiler, but I like don't read too closely on this page because there are some spoilers in here. So sorry for not prefacing with that. Let me turn the page. So here we have the TV shows. I decided to start tracking the shows that I watch. We'll talk about that one later. The Program is a really good docu-series on Netflix about troubled teens, like the troubled teens program that was happening in the US, which I think is still currently happening. And if you want to know more about that series, I think this is a very eye-opening story. I think Paris Hilton was a part of it. I'm pretty sure she was a producer for the show. But I really enjoyed that series. And then I watched Challengers, which means I went back and I had a whole Mike Feist phase. So I ended up watching Panic, which was also very good. I had a really good time watching that. That's on Amazon Prime. And then I got tricked into watching Maxton Hall because of TikTok, and I 100% am thankful for that. It's just really fun seeing how like the different ways pop culture went throughout the year. Like, I think this is a very good like telling way of pop culture on here. But I vividly remember watching America's Sweethearts, which I'm from Dallas if you don't know, and I'm very familiar with the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, or DCC, making the team. So this was very fun to see that Netflix released this series, and I had a great time watching this one. And then I took kind of a break with watching full series, and I picked back up in about October with Nobody Wants This. And I'm going to be so honest with you guys, I haven't seen the last episode of that series, but it still counts because I watched almost 90% of it. And then I also watched Queenie, which was a really fun time for me because when I got back into reading, I'm pretty sure this was the first book that I read that got me back into reading. And then I have the last show I watched last year, which is Laid, which was a fairly new show. I think it came out around Christmas time, and I watched it around Christmas time. It was really funny. I really enjoyed this one. This one starred Stephanie Hsu, which if you've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, she was in that as well and did really well in that. And I definitely recommend watching it if you have Peacock. Now, this is where we completely let go of the monthly spreads because I realized that they just were not serving me. I don't read month to month quite well like that, and I don't really do well with TBRs. So I just committed to doing the spreads, which is my favorite part of my book journal. So yeah, I did Queen of Shadow, which honestly, like, I'm gonna put a whole big old like little thing there because I feel like at this point we're getting kind of spoilerly because this is, I'm pretty sure, like the 5th book in the series for Throne of Glass. So yeah, I'm gonna put like a little thing over that. Then on this side we have Alone with You in the Ether, which I really loved reading this book. I read it during the summer, and I just love how this spread turned out. The little bees on the side are really fun. And it's just like, I like whenever it looks kind of scrapbooky. Like, I don't know, I really love this way instead of doing like a formal review of sorts, but just talking more about my experience with this book. It's really good, and my favorite quote was probably, "Do I ask for much? Only everything." So I loved this book. I'm pretty sure like this one I gave it 5 stars. And then this was my spread for the Red Queen series. I did finish reading this one, I think towards, I want to say, summer again as well. I have mixed opinions about this series. At some points I really loved it. At other points I felt like it kind of dragged, but I think it's something that I would have enjoyed a lot more had I read it when I was in high school. Right now it was just kind of hard to connect with the characters because I'm technically much older than they are in the story. And then I have one of my probably my favorite spread last year that I did, and it's my Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home. Given that I only liked this book 3 stars, like I didn't really love the book because I felt like it was kind of long and Magnolia was kind of starting to get on my nerves throughout it, and I was really starting to turn into team BJ. I did still have a really fun time reading the book, of course, because it's just such an entertaining series the way that it's written. But I really love this one also just because of I did something different with like the middle of the page thing, which I guess isn't really that different, but like I just really love how I did the text bubbles on here around the tree, which if you've read the series, you understand the significance of the tree. I liked characters in this a lot more than I liked the story overall. Like I really liked seeing more of BJ, and I loved seeing more of Mr. Julian Hates, which I need to hurry up and finish the series so I can get to know more about him. But yeah, this is probably one of my favorite spreads. I just think it looks so cute. So here we have my autumn TBR, which I gave it one more shot doing a TBR throughout the year, and I just once again didn't do too well at it. I of course finished these 2 books, but I finished some more towards the winter. I did finish reading that one in the autumn, didn't finish reading Harry Potter, ended up donating that book again because I got it in the winter, I got it in the fall and donated it by the end of the winter because I realized I just didn't want to read it. I did finish reading Children of Blood and Bone, which I had a really good time reading, and I think I pretty much also have a vlog of me reading that series, that book too. And then of course for its 2nd year in a row, Babel has made it onto the autumn TBR and has not made it off the TBR list. I'm currently reading it right now though, so I'm very committed to finishing it hopefully by the end of February. So I am reading it, and I'm having a really good time reading it. It's just one of those denser stories that you really have to sit with a lot longer than you can like say like An Ember in the Ashes, which I also really liked. I don't know if I said that, but I really liked An Ember in the Ashes. Then on this side we have my films to watch, which didn't do well at once again. I think out of all of these movies, I only watched Speak No Evil, The Front Room, and The Substance. So not a great grade, but it's okay. That will be my last attempt at a TBR, to be clear with you all. I have given up on this. It's just not my vibe. I am a mood reader. I'm a mood watcher. If I'm not in the mood for it, I'm not gonna make myself watch it or read it. So this is my last attempt to this. So this is where we get into like my really fun pages for my films, and this is where we also learn to not take ourselves too seriously and just enjoy the things that we're doing, because if you can tell, which I'm pretty sure you can, I ran out of space to finish spelling Blink. So yeah, that's really fun for me. I love seeing that. But this is my spread for Blink Twice, which is Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut for a feature film. And I really enjoyed watching this movie. I loved it from start to maybe about 20 minutes to the finish. I did not love the end of the movie, but I definitely respect the things that she decided to do for the end of the movie and for the characters. I don't agree with it completely, but I understand how that could be the outcome for somebody. So if you've seen this movie, I think you can understand what I'm alluding to. But overall, I think this was a really, really strong directorial debut. And I'm not shocked by that at all, given that Zoe has been in the industry for as long as she has been. But this is the first time that we have actually been able to see Channing Tatum stretch his acting skills, which is interesting to say because he doesn't do like anything crazy outside of his wheelhouse. We know he's a charismatic actor, we know he can handle it, so he really sticks to that. But I think what really turns the point for him in his acting career is the fact that he's able to show like the villainous side of his charisma, which is really something that is put on display in Blink Twice. And I also want to give a good round of applause to Naomi Ackie as well. She did a phenomenal job in this movie too, and I think her acting is just something that's so relatable and so relevant to like what we're experiencing in this world right now. I just really enjoyed this story, and the greatest way for me to sum up the whole plot of this movie if this was a Jeffrey Epstein documentary, to be honest. Then we have The Whale, which I 100% loved this movie so much. I'm realizing now that I didn't put my stars on here, but I did give this movie 5 stars. It is a film adaptation of a play, which is so obvious when you're watching the movie just because of how the entire thing is blocked and the pacing of it. But I really love this movie. I love this spread. It's a little bit darker, which kind of fits the theme of the movie, but I really love it. And of course, my favorite quote was, "Do you ever get the feeling people are incapable of caring, of not caring?" So I really, oh, I put the stars right there. So yeah, I gave it 5 stars. Really, really loved this movie. Then we have the Natural series, which I did start reading towards, I want to say October. I read the first 2, so The Naturals and I believe Killer Instinct, and I really loved this. And I'm a very, very big fan of Criminal Minds. Like, I'm pretty sure I've watched it twice, but like the second time I've kind of skipped around with episodes. But anytime I just want to watch TV but don't feel like figuring out what to watch, I always just go to the Criminal Minds channel on my television. So I love Criminal Minds. So if you don't know anything about The Naturals, it's pretty much Criminal Minds but make it teenagers. It's basically just like this program where a bunch of teenagers that are like naturally skilled in profiling or being able to read people or read criminals, they come together and work secretly for the FBI to help solve cold cases, but then they start to get tangled in with a couple of like current cases. So this is pretty much like a spread for the first 2 books and just mainly talking about how much I really enjoyed them. And I had the plan of like doing like a little like murder plot board of like doing like the red twine between like the character squares, but I accidentally washed the red twine and I wasn't able to do that. So, but I think this one is really fun. Then this is now going more into the fall stuff, the fall things that I watch. So I saw The Substance, which if you haven't seen it, what are you doing? It's so good. It has been nominated for quite a few awards already this season. Demi Moore won a Golden Globe for her performance in it, and it's just a really, really good film about not being able to allow yourself to age gracefully. The needle will constantly be moving in society's eye, so you trying to keep up with it will just drive you literally insane. I definitely recommend seeing this movie. It was really good, and I will say Dennis Quaid was the scariest part of it. And then here we are with The Paradise Problem. It is my favorite book of 2024. I had so much fun reading this book, and I never would have read it if my friend hadn't recommended it to me. I hadn't heard anything about it, but she had texted me one night and was like, "Girl, like, you need to read this book." And I'm really glad that I did. I really, really love this book. It's by Christina Lauren, and I think I loved it so much because it's the first book I've ever read where it was like billionaire fake dating, which actually I think I take that back because I read Terms and Condition, which I think is the same thing, like billionaire fake dating, but this one is done way better. I think the main character, I really don't remember her name, but she was really fun, and I found myself like actually laughing out loud at multiple points in this story. So I really liked this book and I recommend it. And I read it in the fall, even though it's like more of a summertime book, but it really holds up. It holds up pretty well. Then, oh, let me just say, if you don't want any spoilers, like anything to do with Throne of Glass at all, I will put a timestamp somewhere around here to tell you where to go next, because these next couple of spreads are for the Throne of Glass series. So skip to that time if you don't want to see this. But I have my Empire of Storms review here. This tandem read took me so long to finish. Really, really loved the beginning of Empire of Storms. Kind of fell off with it on the middle of it, but I loved the end of it so much so that I teared up a little bit towards it. I don't want to like spoil too much if you're just here to see the spread, but the end of this book is so heartbreaking. So if you are like trying to decide whether or not you want to do the tandem read or read them separately, I recommend doing the tandem read because it is nice knowing that I don't have to like then go into Tower of Dawn, because this does end up like on a cliffhanger like everybody says. And Tower of Dawn does not talk about it at all. It doesn't even have the same characters in it, so I would 100% recommend doing the tandem read, even though it nearly took me out. But I really love how I did this spread. I kind of dabbled in doing something a bit differently with like adding more, I don't know, interactiveness to it with the cutouts and whatnot. So on this side I have Manon and a quote from her that says, "War is sanctioned murder no matter what side you're on," which is just so true and so timely. I loved Locken and Elodie. I don't really know how to say her name. I haven't listened to the audiobook, so I think it's Elodie, but it's spelled kind of differently, but I think that's how it is. And then on this side I have our lovely King Dorian, and it just says, "It's not such a hard thing, is it, to die for your friends," which is just such a crazy thing for him to say. But of course this is like a major spoiler on this side, so I really hope you skipped if you didn't want to see that. So anywho, so now we're gonna go on to my Tower of Dawn pages, which at the beginning of my tandem read I really did not like Tower of Dawn. I felt like it was really getting in the way of Empire of Storm, because I was loving Empire of Storm so much that when I was reading my Tower of Dawn chapters, I was kind of checking out because I really wanted them to be over. But towards like the middle of Tower of Dawn, I really got into it, because that's when more of like the romance of the plot starts to come in between Chaol and Yrene. So I really started to love this one, and I like this one a lot more than I thought I was going to at the beginning of reading it. But I have my quote here that just says, "I will cherish it always," by Sartok. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. Like I said, I didn't listen to the audiobook, so I really don't know how to pronounce a lot of these people's names. But I also really had a good time doing this one, because I did do more of the interactive stuff once again with like the cutouts. I did them down here too as well, with the thought that I was going to like write a little blurb about each character, but I changed my mind about that. So they're just kind of like useless flaps now, but I could change my mind again and go back and write something if I wanted to, because I do plan on rereading the series now that I know that I kind of like it. But yeah, I really liked Tower of Dawn. So I have We Live in Time, which was such a shocker to me. Like I remember seeing things like reviews or early screenings of it saying how it felt like it was a book adaptation, even though it's an original script, like it wasn't based on anything. It's a really gorgeous story, and it's kind of slow, but like in a really good way, where you get to really marinate with these characters. And I just kind of really didn't want it to end. But when it did, I was really happy with the way that it ended. Andrew Garfield, I never understood the hype behind him before, but I 100% get it now. He has just such a softness to him that allows him to play really any character any kind of way, and I really like how he really just folds into all of his characters so well, to where I don't feel like I'm watching Andrew Garfield, I'm watching the character. And the same with Florence Pugh. She just has a way of commanding every single scene that she's in, and I love the commitment she had of shaving her head for the film. I can't say more great things about this because I just really loved it. It's just a really good movie. And then I also, like, this was my double feature night, so I also saw Heretic that same night, and I loved this movie so much. I think it's unfortunate some people won't see it because they think that it's a critique on the Mormon religion, when it's really not. It's just more of drawing attention to some of the dangers that religion has in its practices, and it's not condemning it, but it's just saying like, hey, like this is probably not the best way to go about this in our modern times with how violent society has become. Like that's pretty much what the entire movie is about. But yeah, I also did the little interactive like cutouts. Like I think this is so much fun. I saw once again a TikTok of someone else who does like this kind of journal content for her books, and she had like really fun cutouts, so I wanted to adapt it, and I really liked how this one came out with like the little church stained glass windows. And then like, yeah, I just really love this page. We have Talking at Night. If you like Normal People and like that kind of more meditative, slow, plotless story, I would say that they're similar in that way, and I would recommend reading this. But I loved this one so much, I started reading it on my Kindle, and then like immediately was like, no, I need to buy this book. And I'm pretty sure I have a reading blog of this one as well. Then we have the film that I was talking about earlier, Femme. I was so pleasantly surprised by this movie. I remember when it first came out, I really wanted to see it, but it wasn't in theaters long enough, and then I saw that it was on Hulu. It is just so good, and like I said earlier, if you're a fan of the Safdie brothers and the films that they have, like Good Time and Uncut Gems, I 100% recommend watching this movie. You will like it. I just think like between the story, the performances, and the cinematography, this is just a really well done movie. I can't say anything else because I don't want to spoil it. But then of course I had to give One Day its own page. I just like love the show so much, and even though I had already seen the movie and knew like what was going to happen in this story, it still took me out. I just vividly remember when I was watching every episode of this movie, every episode of this TV show, I feel like I was going through like such a severe heartbreak. Like I felt every emotion that was happening in this series as if it was my own. And then we have Maxton Hall, which was just such a surprise to me. I loved this show so much. I think I've watched it twice at this point. And once again, another thing that was going viral on TikTok for a while and that I was vehemently avoiding because I do not trust TikTok recommendations anymore. But if you do fall for them at any point in time, I definitely think that this is one that you can fall for. Like, it's not life-changing in any way, but it is a fun time, and I really enjoyed the performances by both characters, or both actors, and the story feels really authentic and real, to be honest. Like, it's something that I could believe would happen. So I really liked this one. Of course, we have Normal People. Like, I don't know what took me so long to do this one, like knowing that Normal People is probably my favorite TV show, my favorite book. It's just such a great story about miscommunication, and the book itself is just so good. I love how it's written. I can't remember how the quote goes, but it's basically about how like the medium that the art is in is the message itself. So like I hear people complain all the time about how Normal People doesn't have quotation marks, but if you were to read the story, you would understand the power of it not having quotation marks, given that the entire theme of the story is miscommunication. I won't get on my soapbox about it right now, but I do love this story a lot. Alright, and then last but definitely not least, we have Queenie and Rye Lane. Given that Queenie was the first book that I read when I got back into reading, it was really fun for me to end out the year last year with the TV show and giving it its own little spread page. But I think the TV show brings such a levity to the story. Like, I think the actors are just so charismatic and full of their character that it kind of lightens the load of the story, and it was just a really good TV show. I think it was well produced, and I'm interested in seeing more of her work. So yeah, I really loved this show. And then I have Rye Lane, which I've heard nothing but great things about, people loving this movie, and I had seen this movie on Hulu for quite a while, and I had tried to watch it a couple of times but just didn't really give it its full attention. Now, I don't really love the story itself, but I do 100% respect the boldness of the direction and of the style of the story. So for that reason, it got its own page, and I just think it's something that we need to have more in the media, is romance of two Black leads. So that is my 2024 reading and film journal flip through. Thank you so much for sticking through this with me, and I hope you continue to be on my journey with my books and my reading and my film and everything. But thank you so much for watching this, and I will see you in the next one.